Have you ever had that moment where you get that sales call on your calendar, you're so excited, and you're like, for sure they're gonna buy. And then after that hour discovery call, they say something charming like, I'm gonna think about it, or can you call me back in a month? And I'm sorry to tell you, that person who just told you maybe, they're just being nice. They're probably actually a no. And so we want to help you to get more yeses. My name's Lauren LaForge, and having the past almost 20 years of sales experience, I've definitely learned what are some of those best practices that can help you get the yes more often than not. In this course, we're going to work on those 5 steps that can help you to have a better sales call and have more of those excited prospects actually become paying customers by the end of your call. So if you're excited to learn this, I encourage you to click into the next video to dive into the course, and we're going to help you grow your business and build that life of your dreams. We'll see you there. We're going to work on the framework of what a great sales conversation sounds like and what's the best place and the best use of our time in that hour we have with that prospect on the phone. So I want you to keep an open mind with this, because you may be watching this and thinking, Lauren, I've got 10 years of experience, I do it how I do it, and yeah, sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. Or perhaps you're the other. You're the person who says, Lauren, I'm brand new at this, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I really want a framework to follow. So I encourage you, stay open as I teach this framework, and then obviously, once you get it down, add your personality in there. But this is what we found to be the most successful route to get someone to say yes. So the first thing you'll see is we're going to be doing rapport. We're going to build that rapport with that prospect over the phone. We're going to be working on our purpose statement and having a really clear agenda so our prospect knows where this call is going. This part of the sale should be about 5 minutes. Then we'll move to the second part, which is your discovery. This is where we find out all about that prospect. What are their goals? What are their fears? What do they want to have change? And what would happen if they didn't do that change? This is where you want to spend the majority of your sales call. This will be about 20 to 30 minutes. And you want to be there full of empathy and taking tons of great notes so that you know exactly what this prospect is looking for. The third part, as you'll see, is we want to have a great pitch. This is where you share in a customized way how your product or service solves their problem. The interesting thing is, this is only 5 minutes of the conversation. Some people accidentally, they go into this sales call and they think, oh, they want this call so they can know all about me. When ironically, that's not true. They only need to know what's important for them to know based on their needs. And so our discovery needs to be the bulk of that conversation, and your pitch is actually really short and very customized. The fourth part is now us moving them. If they seem like a good fit, they're interested in our product and our service that we have, then we're going to move them into what the price is and what are the expectations of a great client to work with you. We do a little bit of reverse psychology here, and we help them prove that, yes, I'm the person who fits your expectations so that I get the honor to work with you. And then step 5 is us moving them into next steps. Maybe it's that date on the calendar. Maybe it's them sending you some information to get their account started. Whatever it is, we're going to be clear on next steps. Now, if you notice, never once on there did I say close. This is when you close the sale. Because ironically, if we have this official dramatic sale close at the end that says, so what do you think? Or so do you want to get started? If we haven't done a great job of moving them forward throughout the entire sales conversation, it's kind of like we just got to a big river and we're telling them to jump. And that moment, people get paralyzed, they get scared, and they say what you've been hearing, right? Let me think about it, I'll get back to you, maybe later, and they stay on this side of the river. And so the whole point of this, your hour-long sales conversation, is we're actually moving them across this river stone by stone so that they get to the other side with you and they kind of don't realize they've even gotten there, because we made this sales conversation so easy and smooth, focused on their needs, and then our product and solution is just solving that problem of theirs. So we're gonna dive in step by step of these 5 best frameworks in order to help you get more yeses and close more sales. All right, so you just hopped on this phone call, and now we're gonna do the first part. It will take you about 5 minutes of your phone call. Don't let it take the first 15 or 20 because you'll actually waste some important time. So in about the first 5 minutes, we want to be building rapport, so building a natural connection with that prospect, talking about anything you want. Usually, if you've done a good job of pre-checking who that person is on LinkedIn or on their website, looking at their bio, you easily can pick out something to bring up to say, oh, I saw that you attended this university, or oh, I saw that you speak this language, or I love your website and how clean it looks. So there's something you can say to someone in that very beginning to help build that rapport. Obviously, if they are not a business and you're doing a little more B2C, maybe you've looked them up on Facebook. There's something you've learned about them to bring up. The second part is we're gonna then move into our purpose statement. And your purpose statement usually is 1 sentence. It doesn't have to be long, but it's essentially kind of sharing from the heart. You know, the purpose of our call today is to help you figure out if this will be a great fit for you. We always want that purpose statement to have the client's needs in perspective. We want it to be spoken in the way that it's for the client. Obviously, the purpose for you for this call is, the purpose of this call is so you can give me your credit card by the end. No, we're not gonna share that. We're gonna share it with the client's perspective in mind. So we're gonna say our purpose statement, and then we're gonna move into our agenda. Now, there's a really important part of an agenda. I always love to share this story. I was so excited to go to the Great Wall of China. And here I go. I actually had booked a private tour with one of my colleagues, and we got picked up from the hotel, and this driver proceeded to just start talking. Talk, telling us all about the history of China, all these things, but I did not know the plan for the day. I didn't have an agenda. So we had hoped, when we got in this car, when we booked this tour, we had wanted to make sure that, you know, we went down the Great Wall where you could go down like a toboggan down this slide. We also wanted to go to Tiananmen Square and the Forbidden City, so we thought it was close enough we could do both. We had all these, you know, great plans. Well, the day ended up not going as we planned. We got to this other part of the Great Wall that didn't have the toboggan. We ended up staying there for a really long time, and when we mentioned to him, like, I thought we were gonna go to see the Forbidden City, the tour guide said, oh, you wanna see the Forbidden City as well? It's actually really long, we're gonna have traffic, let's get in the car. So we got in the car, sat in traffic, really bad traffic in Beijing. We hadn't eaten anything, so we were hungry, and we ended up just saying, never mind, drop us back off the hotel, we're gonna eat, and I guess we'll figure out another time to see the Forbidden City. Because that guide didn't give us an agenda for the day, we literally did not have the day we were hoping for, because we didn't know what his plan was, and he didn't know what our plan was. Therefore, in that same way, imagine if you were a tour guide of your sales conversation, and you're gonna let the person know what's coming and see if they had any expectations for this call as well. So if I could have redone that tour, I would have had that the tour guide, we hopped in the car, and the guy turned around and said, all right, ladies, we are going to go see the Great Wall at this section. We're gonna walk around for about an hour. Then we're gonna grab a quick lunch at the water city that's below. Then we're gonna go drive to Tiananmen Square, so you get a chance to see the Forbidden City, and then we can see the sunset from this hill at the very end. Does that sound good? Is there anything else you wanted to do on this tour today? And we could have felt confident to say, yes, this sounds great, please proceed. Or, oh, by the way, I wanted to buy this souvenir, can we stop somewhere? And he could have given us the yes or the no. So in this way, that agenda at the beginning of your call, although it feels maybe cheesy, or maybe it feels like, oh, the person should know this already. Of course I'm gonna explain my services and my price and all of that. We actually want to tell them so that they feel confident about what this call is, and you get to learn what are their expectations for this call as well. So what does a good agenda sound like? Essentially, we're gonna explain those next steps that I explained in our framework. So we're gonna tell them, first our rapport, then our purpose statement. I'm so excited for us to get together today. The purpose of this call is so that you can learn more about our services and see if this would be a good fit for you. First, we're going to dive into some discovery so I can learn all about you and how you're looking to grow and kind of what fears you've got as well. Then I'll explain what my service entails, and then I'll go into what are the next steps in order to get started. Does that sound like a good plan to you? And the person can say yes or no. My favorite question is also to ask, what are your goals for our time together today? What would you like to get out of this call? And the person can then share, and we can make sure we know that we're fulfilling their expectation as well. So like I said, this only takes about 5 minutes, but it sets the entire tone for your sales conversation. I love at this point when I'm sharing the agenda, if I want to close the sale today, then I'll let the person know that. I'll say, I'll go over, I'm gonna learn all about you. Then you can hear about my services, how I work with clients. And then if you're ready to get started, I'll explain the price and next steps. And if it seems like a good fit for you, great, let's get started today. And if not, no big deal. You and I will be friends either way. And that is my way of letting the person know I'm looking for a decision by the end of this call and not a maybe. But how would they know that if I didn't share that with them ahead of time in my agenda? So good luck practicing your agenda. I encourage you to please take about 5 minutes, write out your agenda word for word or with bullet points and practice it. This is a really important part to make sure you start off your sales call in the right way. Okay, so now we're moving to the second part and actually the most important part of our sales conversation. This is where we're doing discovery. We are discovering exactly why this person booked a call with you, what they're looking for, what motivated them to reach out to you to find more out about your services or your product. Here's where you have to be careful. Some people love to just ask like 1 or 2 questions and then the person says, well, I'm really looking for this. And they quickly jump and they say, oh, I do that. This is how I do it. And then they proceed to share everything about their product and service, and they don't actually give their prospect the opportunity to share. So recognize people buy because they like you. They feel connected, they feel like you care and you're listening. So an important part in this section is to put the spotlight on them, help them feel heard, help them describe their situation, their pains, their fears, their goals, and listen. This part, if you look on your clock while you're doing this, try to make this part be somewhere between 10 minutes to 30 minutes. If the person is very direct and they kind of share quickly what they want and you feel like they've got it all out, sure, maybe 10 minutes is fine. But normally plan to spend about 20 minutes on this part. Be curious and recognize that you're gonna find some of those kind of interesting pain points for them. And so go deeper into those pain points when you find them. You don't always have to have a long answer or a long additional question to say, add on top of it. You can simply say something like, why? Tell me more. How does that make you feel? You can ask really short questions. Even this response is one of my favorites. We can use our nonverbal communication to help the person share more and go deeper on what that pain point is or describing more about what reaching that goal would mean to them. So in this section, ask a lot of great questions. These are not yes and no questions to help them check a box. These are open-ended questions so the person can share and give deeper responses to what your question is. And you, while you're asking all these questions, be listening, be paying attention, be writing notes. You don't know what direction this call is going to go. And so essentially, as people are sharing, you want to grab that great information, save it in your pocket of the points how you can help them, and then when you do your pitch, you're then going to summarize and share it back to them and how you can solve the problem for them. But we don't want to be pitching in the moment. The second someone has that pain point we can solve, it's your job to just save that pain point, write it down in your notes, and then we don't respond until you have already done your whole discovery and we do your pitch at the end. Sound good? Sometimes it takes a little bit of self-control. It's something new to try. But I like to give this example. Imagine if you go to a car lot and the person in the very beginning, you walk into the car lot and they say, these are all the cars we have. We have trucks, we have minivans, we have sedans, we've got SUVs. And you walk into that lot, you usually already know exactly what you're looking for, or at least the type, or at least the purpose of why you're looking for it. And so recognize that you want to be the type of car salesman that asks the person first, what kind of car are you looking for? Why? What is the purpose for it? What do you want to make sure to not have? And you get to find what that person's looking for, why, and then when you do your pitch, you're just going to recommend the 1 or 2 cars that actually solve the problem for them, instead of sharing all the options of cars first and then doing discovery and doing it all a little bit backwards. If we do it the backwards way, where you pitch really hard, really early, the person usually feels overwhelmed. They feel like there's just too much information. And so we want to be asking the questions so you do a very customized pitch based on what they need, not based on all the options and all the things you can do. Does that make sense? So I encourage you, your action item from this is I would like you to go ahead and start to write out what are some of those important questions that you need to look for when you are in that discovery with your prospect. And I just encourage you to make sure it's their goals, it's the positive stuff, but also ask questions about their fears, their pain points, and what they want to avoid. Oftentimes, solving that negative problem that they have right now is a really strong motivator for them. And so we want to make sure we ask about the part that's uncomfortable too. I had an amazing client, she's a financial advisor, and she said, Lauren, but I don't like bringing up pain. And I get that, but recognize if you don't bring up the pain of their current situation or their possible future if they don't change, they are going to be living in pain. And so it's your job as a salesperson, help them feel uncomfortable and feel that pain in your sales conversation so that they don't end up feeling that future pain and living into it by not changing and using your service to avoid that pain. So good luck. Write out your questions, and I encourage you on your next sales conversation to actually look at the clock and push yourself to ask more questions and not jump in with that pitch too soon. Good luck. So you've done a great job on your discovery. You found their pain points, you found out what they're looking for, and now it's time for you to do your pitch of your services. So the biggest error I found with salespeople is that they just vomit all over their prospect of all the things they can do. And instead, we want you to be very cautious. It needs to be simple. I know you've all heard the famous phrase, KISS, and it's an acronym that says, keep it super simple. When your client is confused, when you give them too many options, they end up doing none of them. Or they tell you, let me think about it, because you've given them too many options to think about. So we want to be super careful in our sales conversation, in the pitch section, that we're really just pitching them what is a best fit for them. It's almost as if you are a doctor, and it's your time to give that recommendation based on their pain points and based on how they want to feel, what problem they want solved. The doctor does not tell you, do you want this ointment or that ointment for this rash? No, the doctor just tells you this is the ointment you need. So just remember, you are the expert. They're coming to you because they have heard or they find on your website that you can solve their problem. And so I just encourage you, keep it super simple. You are the one to give the great recommendation, not to give lots of confusing options. If you're not sure what they want, if they're looking for 6 months of sessions with you or a year of sessions, ask them that in discovery. Ask them, what are you thinking in working together? Are you looking for something for just 6 months, or are you looking for something for a year or longer commitment? If you're unsure, ask in discovery so that you then get to pitch what is the right fit for them. In your pitch, this should be about 5 minutes. And I know this sounds crazy because some people I've found have 40-minute pitches. And honestly, your prospects are falling asleep. Or they start multitasking. They start replying to emails. We as human beings do not have the attention span to listen to you pitch for 40 minutes. So because of that, we need to keep your pitch simple, to the point, in a quick summary. When I pitch coaching to people, it's the quickest summary ever, and I simply let them know, these are the 4 areas we're gonna work on. We're gonna work on habits. We're gonna work on time management. We're gonna work on your motivation to help you grow. And we're gonna work on systems. What are some of those internal systems you need to improve to help your business run so you can feel more relaxed and have more time? In order to do that, we have 2 calls, one every other week, so that we get to dive in and help you grow. And then you have access to audiobooks and physical books that I'll assign to you as needed. Does that sound good? That's my pitch. Super simple. We don't need to overcomplicate it. They're there for a reason. And ironically, they buy because they like you. And by you listening and discovery, you've helped them feel important, and you've created that element of trust. So keep your pitch simple. This is not the time to overtalk. This is the time to keep it simple and just explain those 1 or 2 things you do that solve the problem for them. There's a neat format that people do where they bring up a feature that you do and then the benefit for the client. Therefore, if you wanted to do that, or if it was in the scenario that I'm pitching sales coaching, I would tell people, we mainly work on these 4 topics. A big one we work on is habits, habit creation and habit breaking. That's my feature. My benefit would be so that you can, just like you were saying, you're so tired of that you get into your office and you feel overwhelmed and you don't start working on making client calls, and instead you get busy doing anything else. We're gonna work on that by improving your habits so that you feel empowered and strong. So I can gladly explain my features and then connect it to that benefit that they described that they wanted, or the weakness and the pain point they have that they told me in their discovery. So have fun keeping it simple. I encourage you, please write this out. It's important to have a pitch that you can read, and it can almost be the same every single time. So write out, what is that 5-minute or less pitch for you when you explain the features and benefits of your service? And remembering, you don't have to share all the features of your service, just share the ones that pertain to what that prospect is looking for. All right, you can do it. Keep it simple as you do your simple 5-minute pitch. All right, now you've either gotten to the part that you love, where you get to share the price, or a lot of people hate this part. It's overwhelming, it's scary, it's awkward. Usually, if you're in a service-based business, you love what you do. You would do it for free. And so sometimes you're tempted to give it away for free or to ask less than what you should be asking. This can be a really scary moment. So hopefully, if you've done a great job with building that rapport, finding out the answers to all the questions so that they can feel motivated to buy, they understand their pain points, then you've explained clearly how you solve their particular pain points, then this part should not be as scary. And remember, you told them in the agenda that you were gonna tell them the price. So it's okay, they're ready for it. So when we do the price, it's really important to give a perspective of price. A lot of times people just throw their price out there, and the ironic thing is, right? $500, if you see $500 on, let's say you're going shopping and you see $500 on a jacket, you're like, $500, that's so much money. But on the flip side, if you saw a flight for only $500 going to Europe, you'd be like, $500, this is great. I want to get this flight before it disappears. So recognize the amount of money, ironically, doesn't quite matter. It's the perspective of that value and compared to other things that we know of in the marketplace. So if you are selling your coaching services for $500, $600, $1,000, if you're selling a program and it's $2,000 for 3 months of your program, whatever your price is, We want you to feel confident in sharing it and to always explain a perspective. And so a good way to share that perspective is to share what other people charge, because oftentimes this prospect doesn't know what price to compare it to. So we want to introduce a perspective of price, and this is what it sounds like. We can say something like, most people expect that this amazing service that I provide is going to cost something like $1,000 or $2,000 because there's this program that charges $1,000 a month, and there's this other program that actually charges more like $3,000 a month. And so they're thinking that I'm going to be that price as well. And so a cool thing is that instead of being $1,000 or $3,000, working with me is actually only $500 a month. Pretty amazing, right? Your $500 was still your $500. But we just gave it perspective in comparison to other things that are in the marketplace. And because of that, the person can feel confident to know that you are giving a fair rate or even that you're giving a deal. My favorite was when I did this with a prospective client and they said, oh, why are you so cheap? And I just had to laugh because I obviously had done such a good job of giving my perspective. He really thought I should be $2,000 a month. I greatly appreciated it. So when you're giving this price perspective, feel confident, share real examples of what other prices are. If you don't know of other prices for your service or your product, Google it. Call your competitors, or have a friend call. I'm looking into doing your services. I was curious how much you cost if they don't have their prices written online. You don't need to stay in the dark. Go find out what these other prices are so that you can share with confidence that price perspective. After we give that price perspective, remember, we're at the side of the river. We don't want to just ask them to jump and say, so it's $500 a month. Do you want to do it? The person's going to stay there, and they're going to tell you something like, let me think about it. And so I encourage you, this is where we're just going to smoothly move into expectations. And this part I love. This is where the reverse psychology comes in, because we're going to be saying something like, the best clients that I found who work with me are the clients who are responsive, they're hungry to grow, and they're innately overachievers. These are the clients I like to work with. You obviously add in your expectations here. And so for you, if we're going to work together, are you able to say yes, that you are also someone who's driven and you're an overachiever? Does that sound like you? So we want to set it up in a way where they're like, yes, I'm those things. I'm your ideal client. So they stop thinking too much about the price, and now they're thinking about kind of proving themselves that they're your ideal client. So obviously, write down what are your expectations, and then we want to share them with confidence and say, the best people who work with me are like this. Are you someone who can say yes to being like that? Do you think you'd be the right type of person for me to work with? And all of a sudden, you're putting that decision on their place, but more in the perspective if they can fit those expectations. And then same thing, we keep moving. Remember, we're just crossing this river, little step by step. And so then our next step, really smoothly, is simply to say, they say yes, because people like to prove themselves to you. So you tapped into that psychology with them. And then they say, you say, great, in order to get started, all we have to do is, and you explain those next steps. For me, I like to put that person's first call on the calendar. Maybe you have a contract they need to sign. Maybe you have an onboarding call you want to have with them. Whatever that next step is, schedule it now. And by explaining next steps, they're kind of stepping onto the other side of the river without realizing it. And so you confidently say, great, in order to get started, all you have to do is go ahead and we're going to set up that onboarding call so I can get all the details and can get started with you quickly so we don't waste any more time. In order to get started, we'll set that calendar date, and then I just have to grab your credit card real quick so that we'll save it, and then I'll bill it on that first day. And I'm going to confidently ask for that credit card on the call, or obviously you may have a credit card form so you can let them know. I'm going to send you this credit card form and a contract. Go ahead and you will sign it digitally and get it back to me before that onboarding call on the 16th, whatever the day is. So therefore, you're not dramatically asking them, do you want to get started? You're just helping them book that next call, do the next steps, get the form back to you so you guys can get started. I know this sounds crazy, but it's a lot less scary when you have this scripted out. So your assignment is to please write this out in a way that works for your business, practice saying it confidently, and then use it on your next prospective call, and you'll be amazed that it actually works because you didn't ask them to jump, you walked across with them. All right, good luck, you got it. All right, you did it. We successfully got to the end of the framework for best practices to get the best out of your sales call. Now is your time to use it. And I just want to warn you, it might feel awkward at first, especially if you've been used to doing this backwards for a while, and you're going to have to challenge yourself to be brave enough to try this out differently. And I know sometimes we are creatures of habit, and so I encourage you, write out all of your notes of what we've discussed today, of those 5 steps we want to be using when you are in a sales conversation, with how long each part should typically be, to help yourselves make the most of that hour discovery call and help the client say yes and move on to those next steps of giving you their credit card and starting to work with you. It won't be easy, but oh my goodness, it's gonna be worth it. And I just encourage you, remember, your prospect wants to be the hero of their own story. You are there simply to be their guide. And so this is not a show all about you and all the magic you can do and all the options you have to throw their way. It really is a call, making your prospect the hero, hearing all about what they're looking for, and then simply being the guide to go ahead and give them the best fit, the option that will work best for them, and smoothly help them get started with it. So I challenge you, have fun with this, relax, give yourself that script, that guide to follow when you're on your next sales call. And honestly, I still use a script when I do sales calls today. I've been doing this for years, 18 years, 20 years, and I still use that script, the outline, when I'm hopping on a new sales call, because I want to remind myself of the best practices and the best framework to help that prospective client become a paying client. So you can do it as well, even if it takes a little bit of practice or a little bit of a shift. Some ways to really help yourself that I encourage you to do is, 1, practice it. Set up your phone so you can record yourself, or you can do an audio recording. That way you can practice doing it and then listen back to yourself. You obviously can practice with a friend of yours or someone in your life, or go for it, just practice with your next prospective client, and maybe even record that call so you can listen back on it. The neat thing is, just like going to the gym, you're gonna start doing it and it's gonna feel awkward and it will feel weird and it might hurt, but the more you do it, the stronger you're gonna get and the more it's just gonna feel natural. So I encourage you, let's get started on your next prospective call, that next one-on-one that you have, and let's help the person through the 5 steps confidently cross that river with you and get started. You can do it. I'm excited to hear the great news. Have fun diving in and becoming a strong salesperson to help people say yes. If you want to hear more, go ahead and check out my website, laurenlaforge.com. Follow me on Instagram and on Facebook, and I'm excited to keep inspiring you to try the best practices so that your sales calls can continue to be successful. Again, this is Lauren LaForge. Thank you so much for diving in to improve your sales cycle and to improve that first sales conversation to help you get more yeses. You can do it.